With 2022 on the horizon, let's go over some JRPGs to look out for in the new year. This list will first go over the games that have official dates and then follow with the titles that are softly confirmed for 2022, the ones that don't have an official date as of yet but realistically have a chance of coming out during 2022. So that means there will be no Dragon Quest XII, which hasn't had anything since the teaser trailer back in May, and also no Final Fantasy XVI, which apparently has been delayed by half a year according to Naoki Yoshida himself. So let's start with those announced dates first. Pokemon Legends Arceus, releasing on the 28th of January 2022 for Nintendo Switch. Now normally I won't talk about Pokemon games in news videos or the like because in the majority the formula has been relatively static since the 90s. You catch Pokemon, you beat gym leaders, you triumph over the Elite Four and you catch the legendaries. This is the general structure that's endured for nearly 3 decades and it's no wonder that Game Freak sticks to it since, well, it works. But the longer you stick with mainline Pokemon games, the more likely you are to see similarities the further down the line you go. It's why I stopped around the 4th generation, though I have occasionally got the itch to go back. So considering the rigidity of the series for the most part, it's nice when Game Freak decides to branch out a little and freshen up the formula, and that is exactly what Pokemon Legends Arceus is. Though the core gameplay is still there, it seems like there's been more emphasis put on the adventure side this time around. You have elements like crafting, a somewhat open world to explore in the Hisui region which will later become Sinnoh, and a different take on a story where you're embarking on a quest to create the region's first Pokédex by surveying Pokemon in their natural habitat. This does look interesting, and generally when Game Freak do move away from the standard structure, they have a track record of creating some lasting classics. I'm thinking back to the likes of Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon to name a few. We'll see what this has to offer. Monarch, releasing on the 22nd of February 2022 for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PC and Switch. Onto a game now that some frequent viewers will know I've mentioned before. I placed this as one of my most anticipated JRPGs for 2022 and the trailers continue to intrigue. The premise seems simple, you're stuck in an academy that's cut off from the world and you have multiple routes to go down. You then have elements like demons which can be customized based off something called ego, plus puzzles and turn-based combat. It recently got a trailer to show off that aforementioned combat earlier this month and it still looks good. I think the only thing I'm concerned about is the enemy variety. There seems to be a lot of skeletons, but we'll know once it comes out in February. Atelier Sophie 2, releasing on the 25th of February 2022 for PS4, Switch and PC. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one, there's no denying that. I've enjoyed the hell out of the original Mysterious trilogy and now that a 4th game is coming in, I can't really say no. We're seeing the return of the likes of Sophie and Placta, who are top tier characters in of themselves, plus the gameplay trailers do look promising, reintroducing the grid-based system of alchemy which was simple to pick up but highly satisfying to work with, especially in Lydian Sewell. I'm personally hoping that that iteration is the one that's built upon, but also introducing the likes of weather changes and major gathering spots. I well and truly caught the Atelier bug in 2021, I can't wait to delve in again come February. Triangle Strategy, releasing on the 3rd of March 2022 for Switch. Yes, it's a Switch exclusive, but it's been gaining quite a bit of attention for its beautiful art style and grounded strategic gameplay. If you're a fan of the likes of Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem, then you'll probably get a kick out of this. In terms of gameplay, it's basically as you see here, a turn-based tactical affair with a grid-based arena. Apparently you can interact with the environment during battle as well to change the terrain, plus player choices during the battle sequences can affect who allies with you and who opposes you, which naturally has the capacity to affect the story scenes and the battles themselves. The story takes on your typical Warring Kingdoms archetype with 3 countries fighting over the scarce resources of salt and iron, so I can hazard a guess as to how it might play out narratively. But these approaches to a story can definitely work if they're executed well, building up scale and suspense in equal measure. I'm personally looking forward to whatever it is they come up with. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, releasing on the 18th of March 2022 for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, Xbox One and PC. On to another game due out in March and yet another from Square Enix. Stranger of Paradise is noted as a retelling of the original Final Fantasy in a grittier setting. You still have your prophesized Warriors of Light, but it's decidedly more brutal owing to the action-based gameplay courtesy of Team Ninja. Demos have since come out for the game, and based on user feedback, there have already been some changes to the title, like improving enemy AI and toning down the darkness in certain areas, which is good to hear. They're listening to player feedback and acting upon it. And what's more promising is that people who have tried it have been positive for the most part. Even though this is a game that I'm not overly excited for personally, I'd be open to giving it a try once my backlog is culled down a little. Rune Factory 5, releasing on March the 22nd, 2022, for Switch. Yet another title for March, though I will say that the date given here is tentative, as this came directly from Nintendo Life. Other sites don't give a specific day in the month, they just say March. But regardless of the uncertainty, many fans of farming sims like Sakuna of Rice and Ruin might find a degree of joy from Rune Factory 5. You've got elements like action-based combat, the ability to tame monsters to assist with the farming side of gameplay, crafting, cooking and fishing as side activities, and there's also a nod to life simulation as well, where you can talk to other citizens in the town of Rigbath and complete their storylines, which can eventually lead to potential marriage. Western fans of the series have been waiting patiently for that sequel way back since 2014 for PAL regions, so hopefully this will live up to expectation. Relayer, releasing on the 24th of March 2022 for PS4 and PS5. SRPG fans are getting it good once again here. Triangle Strategy is getting a release at the beginning of March, and it appears that there will be another title in a similar vein released near the end of the month in Relayer. The game is set in the year 2051, where humanity is in the process of exploring the galaxies, eventually bumping into an alien race known as Relayers. In the interest of supremacy over the galaxy, because of course this is what we don't really do diplomacy, pilots known as Star Children take control of Mecha and fight against the Relays, and you'll have different classes at your disposals like tanks, assault models, snipers and scouts, each with their own customization options on top of that. The pilots get their own traits as well. The game is estimated to be about 40 hours in length, not including side content, and there is a side game experience that apparently comes to another 40 hours. The game itself will have both English and Japanese audio. Forspoken, releasing on the 24th of May 2022 for PC and PS5. Rounding out the games with announced release dates, we have this new IP from Square Enix. This is an interesting one. It's an action RPG with an isekai feel to it, taking the main protagonist from the bustling streets of New York to the fantasy lands of Athia. It's open world, apparently the player can travel wherever they want, whenever they want, and there is a focus put on terrain traversal, so you can flow through the environments and truly appreciate the beauty of the world. On top of that, according to Square themselves, this game will be a narrative-driven adventure, which is right up my alley. I personally place a lot of importance on story to keep me engaged. This could be a real gem of 2022, so I would definitely keep an eye on this one. With that, let's now move to the games that don't have concrete release dates but have a good chance of releasing in 2022. GranBlue Fantasy Relink, releasing in 2022 for PC, PS4 and PS5. The trailers alone are enough to get me excited for this one. 2016 was when it was first announced, and every year there seemed to be little progress made on its eventual release. However, it seems that 2022 will be that year, as not only have we had some teaser trailers for the title over December showcasing some of the combat and the bright aesthetic, but it seems that the platforms are being finalised too, with the title getting a PC release on top of its PS4 and PS5 versions. Additionally, if you've played games like Crystal Chronicles or The World Ends With You, you might get a kick out of the 4-person cooperative multiplayer. It seems like a game that you can enjoy with your buds on top of playing solo if you'd rather go down that way. Either way, hopefully this doesn't get pushed back even further, because like Forspoken, I think this will be a shoo-in for top 10 JRPGs of the year. Sea of Stars, releasing in the holiday season of 2022 for Switch and PC. Now moving away from the heavy resources of Cygames to this indie title that only recently succeeded in its Kickstarter campaign. I mentioned this last week in the first part of the December news roundup, but we're going to mention it again because I think this game has the potential of being a hidden gem. Yes, we've only got trailers so far, which naturally will highlight only the good aspects of the title, but they did a solid job in actually showing off those good points. The art style alone looks amazing, like a spiritual successor to the likes of Chrono Trigger. It's turn-based, it involves the likes of Yasunori Mitsuda as a guest composer, and the previous work of the studio themselves in The Messenger from 2018 was also received well in the majority. There's a lot of good signs here, and even though it's not due till near the end of 2022, I felt it needed to be given more attention. And before we do move on, since we are mentioning one indie title, I do want to give a brief mention to this one too. Reason being is that we haven't heard anything else about it since 2 months back, but I feel that this is another title that has potential. The game is called Threads of Time. Again, it draws influence from Chrono Trigger in particular. It utilises some beautiful 2.5D pixel art, and I'm hoping we'll get more updates on it soon. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, releasing in spring of 2022 for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, Xbox One, PC, and Switch. Now this will be interesting for many, I'm sure. Made by the combined efforts of Yoshitaka Murayama and Junko Kawana, two of the minds behind the fabled Suikoden series along with other alumni, Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes was also successful in its Kickstarter campaign, raising around $4.5 million in 2020. What we see here in Eiyuden Chronicle Rising was a stretch goal for a companion game. Needless to say, this was also met. Since that point, development has reached a level by which the spin-off in Rising will release in spring of 2022, while 100 Heroes has been pushed back to 2023 thanks to delays. However, there is apparently merit in playing Rising first, as it provides background to some of the characters who will be appearing in the 2023 title, and it's been promised that there will be minor in-game benefits for doing so on top of that. Rising itself is described as a town-building, side-scrolling ARPG which weaves together the pre-war stories of characters from Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. Monochrome Mobius Atonement in Time, releasing in 2022 for Japan. Right, so this one here is only due for the Japanese release, and there's no news yet of a potential Western release, which isn't too surprising considering we don't have the latest Utawareru mono title in the spin-off Xanadu, but I feel that this one should be mentioned briefly for fans of the series, especially the original trilogy, as it appears to be a prequel to those mainline games. It remains to be seen who will pick this up, whether it will be Atlus in combination with Deep Silver or NIS America, but we'll just have to keep our eyes on this one in the meantime. I'll be surprised if it comes west in 2022 though. Star Ocean: The Divine Force, releasing in 2022 for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and PC. You know what, I'm glad to see this coming back. Star Ocean 4 was one of the first JRPGs I ever played, and yes, despite its flaws, I actually did enjoy it. Unfortunately, we know how Star Ocean 5 turned out back in 2016, and the series has been dormant since. Thankfully, Tri-Ace has taken the Galaxy defibrillators and sparked this cosmic husk back to life with what appears to be a much needed new direction. So far, we've only seen environment showcases and some short clips of gameplay, but it does look promising at the very least. I'm just hoping that Tri-Ace can recapture the magic from the earlier titles that brought fans in initially, because in terms of scale, not many can match up to Star Ocean. Trails from Zero, releasing in fall of 2022 for PC, Switch, and PS4. Yeah, you knew it was coming. Trails from Zero, the first game from the Crossbell duology, is due out late this year, and it will plug the gap that has existed in the West for over a decade, with Asia following on in 2023, which is promising to be a very good year for Trails. As for Zero though, I've no doubt it's going to be top tier in terms of translation quality, owing to the fact that the Geofront team are working in official partnership with NIS America to bring this arc to Western audiences. And I'm just happy that a larger number of Trails fans who have not had the chance to play this game with the translation patch in the past now have that possibility very close at hand. As for the newest Trails game in Kuro no Kiseki 2 Crimson Sin, I'll mention it as part of this section since of course even though we know it's due out in 2022, it's only gonna be for Japan and potentially wider Asian markets once Clouded Leopard Entertainment get involved. I've made it a personal challenge though that this year I want to try and get to the level by which I can play Crimson Sin without the need for a spreadsheet, which I'd like to believe the Zero Field team will be working on come fall of 2022. And that's something I want to mention as well, if you're looking to play the first Kuro no Kiseki, that same team are working on a spreadsheet for the game which hopefully will be out very soon. AI The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, releasing in spring of 2022 for Switch, PS4, Xbox Series, and PC. Now here's something I can really get behind. Fans of the original AI are getting a treat this year with this sequel called Nirvana Initiative, already sporting some returning faces. The original game had some pretty nifty elements added to its visual novel bones, with the likes of the investigation and somnium parts contributing to different routes. Naturally though, what allowed it to stand at such a high level of critical acclaim was that it did many of the basics well, like strong voice acting, solid writing, and a thought-provoking yet accessible narrative. I personally haven't seen any glimpses as to what we can expect from the sequel, but if it's anything like the original, then we're in for a good time here. Vestaria Saga Gaiden: The Sacred Sword of Sylvanister, releasing in 2022 for PC. Another SRPG to get the appetite ticking over. This here is a sequel to Vestaria Saga War of the Scions, which came west in late 2019 for PC. Some people may know the notable individuals involved with this, like Shozo Kaga, who was the original development lead and creative contributor of a certain series known as Fire Emblem back at its inception. As for this game, it has multiple endings influenced by your choices, ally conversations, and 30 characters to recruit with different classes, weapons, and skills. From what I see, it's got that Langrisser feel to it, so if you enjoyed the remake of 1 and 2, which released back in 2020, you might like this one as well. There seems to be a notable similarity in terms of structure. Digimon Survive, releasing in 2022 for PlayStation 4, Switch, Xbox One, and PC. Alright, now here's another game that has been stuck in development hell, or should I say digi-hell. Digimon Survive was initially announced back in 2018, but it was continually pushed back and back until some eager would-be players simply resigned themselves to believing it had suffered the scale-bound treatment. That's cancelled for you and me. Thankfully though, that does not appear to be the case, as stated by Bandai Namco and producer Kazumasa Habu, who back in July 2021 stated that the game is well and truly still in development and has a release window of 2022, though we don't know where that falls within the year. However, I'm personally glad that this is still going ahead. It seems to be another visual novel hybrid with focused points on narrative, combined with free action and free battle events with your Digipals. The game itself apparently has multiple routes, as you would expect from a game of this ilk, emphasis on player choice and social sim aspects, complete with bad endings which can even lead to character deaths, so yeah, this ain't PG by any stretch. Fingers crossed that it doesn't get another pushback. Made in Abyss: Binary Star Falling into Darkness, releasing in 2022 for Switch, PS4, and PC. Rounding out the list is this video game adaptation of a deceivingly innocent anime. Binary Star is going to be an action RPG where players are able to relive the events of the manga and anime by diving into the Abyss itself. But there's also an additional original story there too, which will be structured in the same vein of the original series. Now, I think the animation style is going to be hit or miss, but I think it's great. It pays homage to the source material, which is how I prefer it. As for gameplay, I don't believe anything has been shown as of now outside of screenshots of the cast and the UI, but I imagine we'll get more during the year, as this apparently isn't due out till right near the end of 2022. I've got faith that this could be good though. It's being developed by Spike Chunsoft, who some will know as the brains behind the Danganronpa titles, plus the likes of AI the Somnium Files, which was mentioned earlier. And there we go guys, a fair number of the JRPGs we can look forward to that are either confirmed or likely to be released in 2022. If you like this content, please give it a like as it helps the channel out, and I'll see you soon. Peace.